I think the last 3 games, in the second half, you guys have given up a total of 51 or 53 points. And I know Coach's motto has always been, since he's been here, is if you can't score, you have to stop the other team from scoring and make them play bad. I mean, have you guys heard that recently? And what's been the switch for you guys to kind of, you're not getting shots all the time, but you're finding ways to make plays and get wins on the road?
Yeah. Well, I think we've probably heard that once or twice, especially in practice. But it might not be the most aesthetically pleasing type of basketball, but I do think that's kind of what Coach Self would prefer actually in wins, because he always talks about him wanting to have the team who's the tougher, the nastier, the better defensive team, the team that kind of just wants it more. And I think he'd prefer those type of wins more than like a 98-96 type game, just because I think it kind of truly shows how dominant you were. Like, we only won by 14 points, but I think those 14 points kind of felt more like 20 in that type of game. And so it was really fun for us to kind of just grind out a win. The last 3 second halves, like you mentioned, we've been really dominant defensively, and I think guys are really honing in onto that, especially when you're not hitting shots, because it's really going to show that we're able to win in different ways. Because once we do start hitting shots, I feel like you'll get the performances like UCF where we're able to win by 51 on the road, and guys aren't really hitting that many shots. But when we have our shooters, they've been a little cold lately, but they've been also great defensively, and I think that's going to show their versatility and how we're able to win in more ways than just one.
Yeah, Hunter, I think you guys have obviously picked up a couple of big road wins. You guys struggled a little bit on the road this past year. Has there been a little bit of mindset shift at all, or has it just been adjustments with defense and stuff like that?
Yeah, like obviously the people who have came back from last year know how much we struggled last year, and I think a lot of that had to do with defensively. Like, if you look at, for example, the Iowa State game last year, where we were, I think, down 2 with a minute left in the second half, and we just needed one stop, and we couldn't get that one stop for I think like 2 minutes straight. Like, we needed a stop and we couldn't get it, and I think that was so. And then you look at like Kansas State last year, where we needed a stop. They hit a 3 to go up in overtime and stuff like that. And I think this year we've gotten those stops, and when we've needed a stop, we've gotten them. And I think that's really helped us because, like, especially on the road, you don't have to play perfect, but you got to play really good, just because the Big 12 is so good. And I think defensively we're starting to do a little bit better and really lock up, and I think that's kind of been where we hang our hat on.
Yeah, and that defensive improvement, how much is that Shaq coming in the starting lineup and adding that perimeter defense that you guys have?
Yeah, because I feel like Shaq's probably a defensive-minded guard, I would say, just because he plays so hard and he's so good instinctively, especially in the passing lanes. Him and KJ, kind of really fueled our offense by those, pick sixes, we call them, when they're right in the passing lane and they're able to get a quick transition bucket, which is essentially a free basket for us. We didn't really have to work too hard for it offensively. And those baskets, especially in the Cincinnati game, are huge because when you only score 54 points, you can take any basket at that point. But he's been great for us just because he's also like another point guard out there for Juan, because he's been a point guard his whole life, and so having another floor general out there really helps Juan because we're able to run different sets, have Juan kind of play off the ball and some things, and really utilize him as a passer and making plays and stuff like that. But especially, defensively, Shaq's super tough, super athletic, and I think he adds another dimension to us offensively, but especially defensively.
David? HD, at least 2 of the last 3 games, you've allowed 21% from the field in the second half, which is probably going to result in a lot of wins moving forward. Have we come upon like a dog defensively? I mean, Shaq is kind of the guy that gets pointed to because he's rather new, but can you talk about what's been a little bit different in these last 3 second halves?
I think a lot of it has to do with our defensive intensity and kind of just staying solid. I think UCF and Cincinnati especially were teams that we kind of expected to be able to guard their sets, and if we could guard their sets, we knew that it was just going to come down to guarding a matchup one-on-one, and I think we did that really well. I think you look at the Cincinnati game, I don't know how many points they actually scored off their sets. A lot of it was offensive rebounds and a couple points were off transition. But if you take those away, I think they probably score less than 20 points in that game. And for us, a lot of it just comes down to, because, we scout really well. Like, Coach Dooley had a really good scout versus Cincinnati, got us really prepared for that game. And we kind of knew, we didn't obviously know what they were running every play, but we had a really good idea about a lot of their sets. And I think that kind of made us really confident that all we got to do is stop this set, and they're going to try to go one-on-one. And guys are really buying into that. Just guard your man and take your matchup personally and just get the rebound and run. I think we did that really successfully the last 2 road games.
And you get to go on the road and take on a team that's considered one of the top 3 or 4 offenses in the country. And, I don't follow point spreads, but I'm guessing this would be one of the few times a lot of people are pointing to Iowa State as the favorite. Does that give you a little edge?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I don't really follow the spreads either, so I'll be interested to see after the game what people are saying. But, they are definitely a high-powered team, probably starting with their backcourt, especially probably one of the better backcourts in the country, led by 3 really good guards, 3 guards that all can, kind of take over a game. I think Lipsy, especially defensively, he's been, one of the better perimeter defenders in the country the last 2 or so years. And so it'll be a big test for us going on the road against the high-powered offense, kind of see how good our defense truly is. I think we'll try to hang our hat on that, especially because we have been the last couple games, especially on the road. But I also expect to see our offense kind of, shine through and see guys hit some shots. I think, we're kind of due for that. Like guys like Diggy, guys like Ryland, Zeke, I think are due for some explosive offensive games and, try to score more than 54 points.
Hunter, you talked about it a little bit, but how close do you feel like this team is to finding an identity?
Yeah, I think a Bill Self team is always going to try to have their identity be on the defensive end. I think, playing under Coach Self, he's got so many plays to where as long as you just execute and run the play hard, you should get a really good look. And so I don't think we'll ever, obviously we'll struggle offensively at times throughout the season. Every team will. But, more times than not with the amount of guys we have on this team, I think we will be successfully offensively. But defense, we were talking about it after the Cincinnati game. Defense travels, especially in times like the tournament. You want your defense to kind of try to carry you through, because there's going to be games where, there are rock fights, especially in the tournament. Like once you get to Elite Eight and beyond, every team's really good, and all those games are going to be slower paced games where you're really trying to execute, you're trying to go one-on-one, and that's where you want your defense to kind of stand tall the most, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to prepare for. But offensively, we're going to be a team that tries to execute our sets the best we can, but I think we'll always try to hang our hat on being the tougher, more nastier defensive team, and I think that'll provide a lot of wins for us if we continue to do that.
Yeah, Hunter, you mentioned last year's Iowa State game. Where does Hilton Coliseum rank for you among the various road venues you played in your time in college?
Yeah, it was super fun. It was real loud. I don't know if it would be 1, but it would definitely be in the top 5 for sure, just because of the students. And I feel like a great road venue not only has the students involved, but just the normal spectators as well. I feel like that's what I always say about Kansas and Allen Fieldhouse is, yeah, the students are really loud, but you get the old guys like David back there who are super loud as well and cheering and getting on their feet and stuff like that. And I feel like that's the same with Iowa State, where all the spectators are into it and really active, and I think that's what makes for a great home court advantage.
Got time for a couple more.
Hey, Hunter, 3 blocks for you in 2 of your last 3 games. I wonder, is there a correlation to the way your defense has been playing as a team to you blocking more shots?
Yeah, I've tried to be more aggressive offensively and defensively, just trying to play harder for my team. I feel like that's something that I've tried to make an emphasis after the West Virginia game, and I think that's a product of that. Obviously, 3 blocks a game is really good, but I think it's just more putting myself in, more positions to affect shots and just being more aggressive in that way. I think I still have more room to grow, but I think defensively I've helped out my team. But just as a general, we've all been really good helping each other out. Somebody gets beat a little bit, somebody helps over, and then you got to help the helper, as Coach Self says. So I think it's been an all-around team effort in how we've really upped our defensive intensity.
And for you as a shot blocker, where have you landed on that throughout your career? I mean, everybody's going to look at you and your height and length and all that and say, well, he should block every shot. How have you navigated that? And do you consider yourself a shot blocker? Do you like that?
Yeah, I of course consider myself a shot blocker.
There you go.
But it's more of it's a fine balance because, you know, if I definitely want to be aggressive and I want to try to affect every shot I can, but knowing that, you know, sometimes it's better just to wall up and contest and, you know, try to make them make the shot rather than you blocking it, because, you know, sometimes when I get a little too aggressive and overly aggressive, that leads to fouls, and you know, the worst thing you can do is pick up a foul early or pick up your second foul in the first half, because then you got to sit, and that really limits us, puts a lot of pressure on other guys. Obviously, you know, we're still a really deep team, but we want to be able to, you know, shuffle guys in and out and not rely on guys for extended periods of time. So I think it's a fine balance, but a lot of it has to do with just being in the right spots and being more aggressive, putting yourself not in bad situations, but just more aggressive.
All right, Hunt, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.